My name is Elena. I became a mother despite having a disability. I was born this way, without arms, without legs. In the village, they said my father had many lovers. And one of them came and cast a curse. She struck the doorstep with an axe 3 times. Doctors explain it from their perspective, saying there was a large umbilical cord, and it compressed my limbs. I was 7 months old. I was given up to an orphanage. I found my parents at 16. Our meeting was... I don't even know how to express it. I was certainly scared. But I didn't immediately call them mom or dad. Honestly, it was somewhat cold. Of course, it's very hard for an orphanage kid to leave the institution. You're practically unadapted to anything. Well, I left the institution on my own. After finishing school, they were supposed to provide a 1-room apartment since I was an orphanage kid, an orphan. At 19, I was sent to a nursing home. What worried me most in my life when I was young was that I wouldn't have children. My husband and I met in the nursing home. He came, of course, looking handsome. He had prosthetics. He almost didn't have legs like me, but he had his own knee. It was purely a challenge. I said, he will be mine. Well, I got pregnant spontaneously, purely by accident. I went to visit a friend, and whatever the friend cooked, I didn't like. She says, listen, friend, are you by chance pregnant? I say, no. How could that be? Well, somehow. Half of the people were for me giving birth, half against it. Well, what scared me a bit was that I had no parents. No help. There really wasn't anyone to expect help from. When I found out I was 2 months pregnant, and they were already preparing me for an abortion, I lay there at night thinking, oh God. It's already been 2 months, someone has already started to form. I'm going to give birth, but how will you swaddle him? How will you raise him? How will you manage everything? I'll manage. My pregnancy went normally, but in the last months, my pants were somewhere down on my hips. My stomach was huge. My son was born. Big. My son was born. 4 kilos, 150 grams. It was a C-section. Well, it was quite scary, of course. I spoke with the doctors, asked them. I said if the baby ends up being very small, difficult to hold, can I stay in hospital for a month or 2 until he grows a bit? But when he was born so big, the doctor came up and asked, so, are you going to stay for 2 months? I said, no, I'll go home. I held him in my arms, so tiny and delicate. My relationship with my husband became very difficult after the birth. We separated. And he left. And to this day, we don't know his whereabouts. We filed a missing person report. And we still don't know where he is. Back when I was young, when I had teeth, I would hold a knife in my teeth. I could cut something, peel potatoes, slice meat. Now my neighbor comes over, she helps me prepare the ingredients, and then I cook both breakfast and dinner. The hardest part of my life was until my son could sit up, bathing him, because he was still small, fragile, and I couldn't bathe him by myself until he was 6 months old. Nurses from the nursing home would come over and help me bathe him. Mostly, I wiped him with wet wipes. Washing and hanging clothes were hard. When my son was about 2, we left the nursing home. There was practically no future for us there, and I moved to the city for him to have a better environment, so the child could go to kindergarten, school, be raised and educated. As soon as he started attending daycare, the children there began saying, your mom doesn't have arms or legs. She can't do anything. Then one time I came to pick him up from daycare. I came for him, and as we were walking, he says, Mom, you don't have arms and legs. You can't do anything. I didn't dress him, didn't put his shoes on, nothing for 3 days. On the 3rd day, he says, Mom, you have arms and legs. Please dress me, fasten my clothes, because, Mom, I can't. I won't say it anymore. I didn't have an electric wheelchair. I had a manual wheelchair that had to be pushed by hand. In his childhood, he would push me up hills and to the store. Everywhere, really. I was on maternity leave, and then I went back to work. I have about 20 years of work experience. I say, I want to sew. There were industrial machines. But how with industrial machines? The seamstress says, how are you going to sew on an industrial machine? I say, I will. I adapted, placed a stool, and pressed the pedal with the stool. She says, I'll give you a month, get used to it. I dreamed of going to Paris, to see the Eiffel Tower, to see Paris itself, because they say Paris is a very beautiful city. I love gardening. I water the plants myself. If it's seedlings, neighbors help. This year, my son has been helping me mainly. I water from the window with a hose. Well, I want to tell you, I'm not a saint. I've had many failures in my life. There was, somewhere, drinking and all sorts of things. So I don't absolve myself of any blame. But I'm grateful to the people who helped me get out of those situations. We orphans, we of course need support somewhere, someone to give a hint here and there, someone to stand by us. You feel like a person, that you are needed in this society. When I gave birth to my son and the journalists came to see me for the first time, I was shocked. What do you mean they're gonna show me? To the whole country. Everyone will know me. How's that? And these complexes, they follow you through life. Just like we got these complexes in the orphanage, they follow us through life. People our society still don't understand. They point fingers, like when I ride on the street in a wheelchair. Oh, a disabled person is going. The same with a child. Oh, a grandma without hands, without legs. I used to cry at first, because it was hurtful. But now I've gotten used to it. I just look away and move on. I always envied people having legs, as I don't have legs. For some reason, I didn't desire hands as much as I desired legs. My son started earning money from the age of 13 because the pension was small. Plus, he traveled abroad from the age of 8. He saw a different world. And then, after he graduated from university, wheelchair users invited him to work in their organization. And he worked with them for about 13 years. My son is the most important thing for me. He gives me a reason to live for everything. If it weren't for my son, I don't know what would await me in this life. But I knew that a child needed to be fed, educated, clothes washed, the house cleaned, play with him. And I believe that my life has been a success. My son gives me a lot of strength, energy for everything. Being a mom without arms, without legs, it's of course difficult, but great. It's a pride that you are a mom, that you brought a child into this world and you are raising him. It's simply wonderful.